Good morning. I'm going to be reading Luke chapter 9, verses 23 through 25. Then he said to the crowd, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but are yourself lost or destroyed?" Now let's give a warm welcome to the one, the only, Bruce Hughes.
I don't even know how to follow that up. Well, everybody, welcome to Wellspring. As Andrew so wonderfully introduced me, better than I could do myself, my name is Bruce. I'm the student pastor here, which means I get the lit privilege of working with our 6th to 12th graders. Got to embarrass the students a little bit. There we go. Thank you. Well, look, I'm coming out before because I'm going to show a clip, a Batman clip, because you know I love Batman. And what I want to draw your attention to as we're watching the clip is that Bruce, not me, but Bruce Wayne, is searching for purpose. And there's a lot of pain that's hidden in there, but I want you to see how he's searching. Eli, would you go ahead and play that clip for me? Thank you.
But no more. I've sewn you up, I've set your bones, but I won't bury you. I've buried enough members of the Wayne family.
You leave me?
You see only one end to your journey. Leaving is all I have to make you understand. You're not Batman anymore. You have to find another way. You used to talk about finishing, about a life beyond that awful cave.
Alfred, Rachel died knowing that we had decided to be together. That was my life beyond the cave. I can't just move on. She didn't. She could have.
What if she had?
I can't change that.
What if before she died, she wrote a letter saying she chose Harvey Dent over you? And what if, to spare you pain, I burnt that letter?
How dare you use Rachel to try to stop me?
I am using the truth, Master Wayne. Maybe it's time we all stop trying to outsmart the truth and let it have its day. I'm sorry.
You're sorry. You expect to destroy my world. And then think that we're going to shake hands.
No. I know what this means.
What does it mean?
It means your hatred, and it also means losing someone that I have cared for since I first heard his cries echo through this house. But it might also mean saving your life. And that is more important.
Goodbye, Alfred.
Man, that scene hits every time. So look, this Batman series trilogy is the hands down the best Batman movies of all time. And what I love specifically about these Batman movies is that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, all three of them are really about Bruce Wayne. And Batman is just kind of the background of Bruce Wayne. And in The Dark Knight Rises, it comes to fruition that Bruce Wayne is stepping into his purpose. In The Dark Knight, the second one, he talks about losing Rachel. He sees now that in the third movie, because of losing Rachel, he's pushed everybody away. And now he's reclused back into himself, and the stuff that's happened in the third movie is starting to come back out. But even as he puts on the cowl and starts to become Batman and go into saving Gotham, really the movie is all about Bruce finding his purpose. And it's not to be Batman, it's not necessarily to save Gotham, it is him wrestling for his purpose. And I think if we're honest for a moment, we all are searching for purpose. We're all looking and wanting to find something that anchors us in our storms. That no matter the waves and the rain that's beating down on us, that there's something that's still holding us there. We want something that even when life is medium at best, that it's still giving us the answers and still pushing and driving us forward. And that purpose that is still the little bit of glitter that just adds to the happiest moments of life. We're all looking for purpose. Now some of us may not be where Bruce Wayne is, where we've lost that sense of purpose in somebody and we're in a lot of pain and hurt. And some of you might be there even to a worse extent. But we're all searching for purpose. We're all looking for something that's going to drive us. And so we are on the search that all of humanity is on. We are all asking ourselves two questions. It is, who am I and what is my purpose? Who am I and what is my purpose? And as we've grown up within the United States, we have had books after movies, after TV shows, after YouTube videos and TikToks and Snapchats. All of these things have pushed us inward. That if I'm going to answer who I am, and if I'm going to figure out my purpose, then I've got to follow my heart. I've got to follow my feelings. I've got to follow my greatest desires. I've got to follow the goals that I've set for my life. And the problem starts to come is what happens when you have two competing desires? Do you give into your biggest one? What happens if you build your life following this one path, this one thing that you've set yourself on, and you get back at the end of that 10 years and you know that you've wasted that time? What if Jesus is going to present something to us today in Luke 9 where he's not just about fixing the path that we're on, he's not just kind of setting a new destination. Jesus is going to pick us up from our path and set us back down on a completely new path. And in Luke 9, that's what Jesus is pushing us to. He's pushing us away. And I think when he goes into Luke 9 and when he starts saying all these things, what I love is I feel like he's got to have the United States in mind. Because from the earliest of age, we're taught that we've got to follow our hearts. We've got to turn inward. I've got to find my purpose. I've got to find my reason. And I know for me personally, that is a really tiresome pursuit. That path weighs heavily because everything weighs on you. And Jesus is going to say, hey, that's not how I made you. Look at Luke 9, 23 to 25. Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Jesus straight up drops the craziest paradox on us. Right? Like if I'm going to find my life, then I've got to be willing to lose it. Like, what the poop, Jesus? What are you talking about? I've got to be willing to set off all of my stuff and go down a new path. And here's what I love. We're going to put on our literary hats, and we're going to dive into two things within the book of Luke. And Luke, the first 8 chapters, Luke is answering this question of who Jesus is. Right? So he's asking and answering the question of who Jesus is and what his purpose is. So in the first 8 chapters, it's all about Jesus being God, Jesus being the Messiah, Jesus being all of humanity's hope. And then in chapter 9, the book switches. And it's if this is true, if Jesus is the Messiah, then what is my response and what is your response? And I think we owe it to ourselves, and we have a responsibility to God, that if Jesus is who he says he is, then we've got to start down that journey. That we've got to pull that rope that Jesus is offering us and figure out what he's getting at. Because the God of the universe set you here, such a time as this, to do something special and amazing. But you've got to figure out your purpose, who you are. And so in the beginning of Luke 9, you're going to see where Jesus drops and he says, hey, who do people say I am? And the disciples start rattling off a couple different things. And then Peter stands up and he says, Jesus, straight up, you're the Messiah, man. And Jesus is like, dope, for real? And then Peter says much better than he can. And so in this moment, Luke switches. Peter recognizes Jesus. Jesus says that's true. And then Jesus drops Luke 9, 23 to 24 and 25. that if Jesus is the Messiah, then our lives have to change. And secondly, within this context, the Greek language has a couple different words for life. One of the words is bios, which is the word for what we would spell as B-I-O-S. And that is where we get biology. It's the word for physical life. When Jesus says that you've got to be willing to lose your life, he does not use that word. Jesus isn't getting after you got to be willing to physically die. Now, he'll talk about that later on, but for this purpose and for this, when he's talking to his disciples, he does not have physical life in mind. Jesus uses the word psyche, which is spelled P-S-Y-C-H. It's the word that we get for psychology. And Jesus is talking about our soul, that we've got to be willing to lose, in some ways, our purpose that we're currently set on, and we have to be willing to start on a new path. Jesus is getting at that there's something more to life. There's something more to your life. And if we're going to figure out what that is, then that means that we've got to start pursuing Jesus and getting after what it is, the path that he wants us to go on, to pull that rope, to start the journey. And so if he's calling us to deny ourselves, let's kind of cut out the static and figure out exactly what he's getting at. And so it's sometimes helpful to talk about what it's not. And so Jesus goes in, or within this, he's not talking about ignoring yourself. Jesus, when he says, hey, I want you to deny yourself, he's not saying that I want you to ignore your pain. I want you to ignore your suffering. I want you to ignore your temptations. I want you to ignore your fifth bowl of ice cream. Like, that's not what Jesus is getting at all. Jesus isn't about us just ignoring ourselves and then just kind of setting our mind and sweeping all of our junk under the rug and then just following him. If that was the case, he would say, I need you to ignore yourself. Jesus is inviting us to take our pains and our sufferings and our temptations and to set them at his feet. That is the call to deny yourself. It is not to ignore your pain and to ignore the things that you're going through. It is to actually deal with them. And the second thing, when Jesus says, I want you to deny yourself, he's not talking about thinking of yourself as less. He's not wanting you to think of yourself as less valuable. The God of the universe made you. And then he knew by making you that he would have to die for you. And so Jesus wouldn't die for you if he thought that you were trash. Jesus wouldn't die for you if he thought you were nothing. And so your value is intrinsically tied to the God of the universe dying for you because he loves you. So if the call is not about ignoring ourselves, the call to deny ourselves is not about ignoring ourselves, the call to deny ourselves is not about our value, the call to deny ourselves is because we naturally turn inward. I am self-absorbed. I am selfish. When I wake up in the morning, I'm the main character in my life. And I'd be willing to bet that when you wake up in the morning, you're the main character of your life. You think everything through your eyes and through how you see things. Everybody is a side character, except for maybe my wife. Just kidding. No, everybody, we are our main character. We turn inward, we're self-absorbed, we're self-focused. And so Jesus is saying that I want something better for you. That when Jesus made the world and before sin and brokenness entered the world, Jesus said that we would be loving and selfless. But I know that we can all look out into the world right now, into the things that you've done and the things I've done, the things that people on Facebook do, the things that people all around us do, and know that the world is not how it should be. Jesus did not make you, did not make others, and did not make myself to be self-absorbed. The call to deny yourself is to put Jesus first. And so if we're going to actually go about denying ourselves, if you're going to go about denying yourself, then you need to know what you're denying. For me, and how it looks for Bruce, and denying Bruce is going to look completely different than how it's going to look for you. Because I've got my own temptations, I've got my own struggles, and yes, we're going to share some of those. But for you, you've got your own temptations and your own struggles, and your answer to following Jesus is going to look, yes, similar, but also just a little different. And so you need to start asking yourself, what is your purpose right now? What are you living for? And now there's the general purpose, the overarching purpose for our life, where we've called on Jesus to be our Savior, where we're following him, where we are his disciple. But we also have purposes. I have purposes within being a husband and being a father. I have purposes in my work. You have purposes in your friendships. You have purposes in the way that you relate to other people. You have purposes in your employment and in the way that you are living life. So in the broad scheme of things, what is your purpose? But even what is your purpose throughout your day? What are you looking for? Are you looking for, like I just need the next big thing? If I could just have this one thing, then my life would be made. And so you struggle with being content. You're looking for something else to give you purpose and to give you meaning. Or maybe you're living for and you want other people to appreciate you and to like you. And if you're honest, it doesn't even have to be everybody. Like it could just be one or two people that you desperately want them to say, I'm proud of you and I love you. And those things can be good things at times. But when that drives us as a person, when that motivates us and pushes us, and that is the fuel that is in our soul, then something's off. On the other side, maybe you like to handle and control everything yourself. You don't really like asking for help because you want to be the hero to your own life. And maybe you've gotten so good at being the hero to your own life that you're starting to be heroes. You're trying to be the hero in other people's life. It could be like Bruce, not me, Bruce Wayne. And maybe that you've been so hurt and so damaged that you've just given up. And your purpose is that you don't have anything. You keep people at a distance because if you bring them in, they're going to hurt you. We're all living for something. The dangerous thing is that we tend to pacify ourselves, right? Like we're not really getting at the problem. And so this is a pacifier. And for our kids, what I found is they absolutely love their passy. Not anymore because they're too old, but they love their passy. And like it would help them, it would soothe them through a lot of stuff. But if they like pooped their pants or if they were really hungry, the passy didn't really do anything. They had a bigger problem than just simply sucking on a pacifier. And many times in our life, we tend to suck on stuff. And it's weird. It's embarrassing for me to do this in front of you. But when we're living for other purposes, we're not dealing with our problems. When you're living for another purpose and when your life is built on something else and you're the fuel for your soul, the thing that motivates you out of bed is something other than Jesus, you're not dealing with your problem. And you're pacifying yourself. You're allowing enough time, whether if we sit on our phones or whether we dig deeper into our purpose and we're going to try all the harder next time, we pacify ourselves until our pain goes away. Until that feeling that something is off disappears. And then we keep going along. But the problem starts to happen is like for me, this is how it goes. Like when we put the kids to bed and there's just quiet in the home and you're like, oh man, what is that? When there's this quiet moment and I'm left alone with my thoughts for the day. I don't have my phone on me. I'm not watching TV. I'm just kind of left alone with my thoughts. The way that you know that you're living for another purpose is in those moments. Are you filled with anger, frustration, regret, jealousy? When you are left alone with yourself and those purposes and the way that you start to kind of think back through your day or through your life and something that's happened, what is starting to fill you up? What is it that you're processing? I want to draw your attention to Jeremiah 2:13. It says, my people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns. Now catch this, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. Now back in the day, a couple thousand years ago, I don't know if you guys know this, they didn't have running water back then. So that they would dig these big cisterns, kind of like small pools, and they would put some stuff in it to kind of hold water. And when it rained, it would give them water to use until it was disappeared, until it had gone. So it gives them living or water that is right beside their house. And Jesus, or God, when he's talking right here, he says that we have dug broken cisterns that cannot hold water. And what I want to draw your attention to is that when we live for different purposes, which is what he's getting at in Jeremiah, I really thought that would crack, so there we go. When we have a broken cistern, and we're living our life for a different purpose, God's grace and mercy still hits. His love, his goodness, it still comes into your life. But instead of holding on to it, because we're living for a different purpose, it drains out. And the image that Jeremiah is giving there is that both the broken cistern and the full cistern of following him, they both get water. They both see Jesus, experience Jesus. They both see his love, walk with Jesus. But one is broken. And so we go about living our life and we're like, God, where are you? Jesus, what is my purpose? And we're trying to figure it out with a broken cistern, a broken cup. But it's both people get the same amount of love, same amount of grace in unique ways. But when you're living for a purpose that is Jesus, that is centered on God, when you're denying yourself, that cup remains and holds that water. And so the question that I have is, what is your purpose right now? What are you living for? Because if you're living for anything other than Jesus, I guarantee that you have a broken cistern. And there are moments in your life when you go to church and you hear the coolest message you've ever heard in your life, where this cup fills up. And you're on fire for Jesus for the next day. Maybe the next 2 days, possibly the next week or the next month, but eventually that water dries out. And it's because you're living for a different purpose. And instead of denying yourself, you're giving in to yourself. And so Jesus' invitation to deny ourselves is an invitation to really find ourselves. What's really crazy is like Jesus in all of this is saying that we're asking the wrong questions. The question that we need to be asking is not who am I and what is my purpose. Jesus sets in front of you and sets in front of me as Bruce, or your name. What are you following? And what you're following is going to be the thing that gives you the purpose and the meaning. So that's the question you need to be asking. Not what's your purpose, not who you are. It is what are you following? Because those two questions are only answered when you're following something. And I promise you that each of us are following something. And all of this, if I can be super transparent, there's two things that I struggle with when it comes to denying myself. And the first one is that I tend to struggle to deny myself and not want to, because the way that I've lived life for so long is more comfortable and feels safer to me. I am more comfortable. I know that I've got a broken cistern at times, but this is more comfortable. This is a safer bet because I know that eventually that water will run out, but I don't have to do anything new. I don't have to trust Jesus. Bruce has got this. The other thing is that if I'm really honest, like the idea of denying myself and putting other people in front of me, the idea of putting God first is who's going to think about Bruce? Who's going to care about me? If I'm caring for God, if I'm caring for other people, like who is going to be the person that looks after Bruce? And this is the reason why I absolutely love following Jesus. It's because it's taken 18 years for Jesus to get me to the point where I will trust him and say, all right, God, like I'm not going to worry about myself. I'm just going to follow after you. It has taken God 18 years, and I'm not even like remotely there, of just being faithful and loving and reminding me time and time again that, Bruce, I love you. Bruce, I'm faithful to you. Bruce, I'm not going to leave you. Because every time I can take a couple steps forward and then I take a couple steps back. But God has been faithful and loving each step of that journey. And so this call to deny ourselves is, honestly, like if we think about it, it's pretty scary. And Jesus isn't calling you to be perfect in this. Jesus' call is like, hey, you don't need to get your life together and be ready to deny every single thing. Jesus' question that he's really saying is, are you willing? Will you be willing to take that step? And so today I set that question before you. Are you willing to take that next step of denying yourself? For some of us, maybe not knowing Jesus, that step is just the initial call and saying, Jesus, I want to follow you. In other ways, if you're following Jesus, if you're his disciple and you have a relationship with him, then maybe that call and the thing that you need to be denying yourself and being willing to is maybe something within work. Or maybe it's being nice and loving to your family. Or maybe it is not gossiping or not blasting people on social media. It could be a ton of different things. The question is are you willing to give those things up? Not can you. It's not a matter of willpower. I promise, in my following Jesus, like I don't have the willpower to not think about Bruce. When I wake up and I lean into Jesus and I say, God, I need you. You are number one. I'm taking my junk to you. And then he comes in and does amazing miracles after miracles in my heart. So I want to give you some alone time. Some time to reflect and think about. What is it that you need to deny? When Jesus is straight up serious right here. What is it that we need to deny? And are you willing to deny it? You don't have to be willpower enough to just straight up deny your fifth bowl of ice cream or be mean or selfish or angry. But are you willing to? And Jesus has got something better for you. Jesus is wanting you to move you from this path that you're on to a completely new path. And so I want to give you just probably a few moments just to take some time to talk to him. I don't want to lead you in a prayer because this needs to be a conversation between you and God. But take some time. Jesus, what do I need to deny? And then say, God, I want to give that to you. I need your help. I need your strength. I need your courage. I need your power to be able to deny that, whatever that is. But just ask him to move in and renovate that area of your life. So I'll give you a few moments. Close your eyes if you can. And take some time to reflect. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to ask you to just, I don't always like doing these things. I mean, personally, when people ask me, but I'm going to ask you. So I'm going to ask you to stick your hands up. And this is just simply like, God, I'm willing to deny myself, right? Like you're first. I'm sticking my hands up because I need you. Right? Like I know that at the end of the day, when I'm left alone with my thoughts, I've got a lot of stuff that I regret, a lot of stuff that makes me angry, a lot of stuff that makes me frustrated. And God, I need you to renovate that part of my life, to deny myself in those areas and let you work. All right, let's pray. Jesus, God, I thank you that you love each of us. And the question that you're setting before us today is not, do you have the strength and the willpower to give up these things? It's the simple question is, are you just willing to? And God, you are so good because your Holy Spirit comes in and gives us amazing strength and amazing guidance and amazing love to be able to do these things. You work miracles, and the best miracles that you work are in our heart. And so, God, we ask that you renovate each of our hearts, that you do something new, and that at the end of the day, we are able to deny ourselves in the areas that we need to. from the biggest of things to the smallest of things. God, we love you, and we're asking for your help. And we ask these things in your name. Amen.